Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's TheSketchMonkey here. Today is all about the Ford Mustang. So what I want to do is to take the SUV Mustang, the Mach-e, and turn it into a proper Mustang that could potentially be the next generation regular Mustang. I think we can call it regular Mustang now because I guess you can take a shape of anything and just slap a label on it, and that would then make it into what the label says, if that makes sense. Anyway, this is of course the Mustang Mach-e here, and I want to talk a little bit about this design here. I made a few videos on this before, and you can go check them out. I get what they did is the same as the Volkswagen Taos that I've in the previous video. It's for marketing purposes a lot to put the Mustang name on something that clearly has really nothing to do with Mustang when it comes to styling. So what will the next Mustang look like then? The two-door, the coupe, the fastback style that we're used to seeing. And over the years, the Mustang has been a lot of different things. It has been a fox body, a coupe, a fastback, and now an SUV. But the thing that I'm going to go with here is the fastback style that we're used to from the latest modern iteration from 2006. Moving forward to today, it's been the fastback style in the rear. So that's what I want to focus on in this redesign of the Mach-e. I think we could call it a redesign of the Mach-e. Anyway, here it is. And what I think the Mach-e is lacking in general is just some sort of sharpness to the design. It's very smooth, and I really don't understand why, because early on in the development here of the Mach-e, they had some really nice looking sharp designs where, when I mean sharp, I don't necessarily mean aggressive, but I do mean sharpen up the shoulder line right here, for example, and have some sort of definition here where we don't see any sort of defining lines in the shoulder at all. And again, we have the same kind of roundness down here in this line right here, which usually is sharp, specifically for a Mustang. It's always been, and I don't really understand why they made all these, the rear shoulder and the part down there and the front shoulder line, why they made them so soft in the Mach-e. So that's of course one thing that I want to implement in the fastback modern version of the two-door Mustang that we're gonna make right here. Another thing is I don't really understand what's going on down here with these wings that stick out like this. It's maybe just a styling feature, but I'm sure it has some sort of function that I'm not aware of. But it makes the rear end look a little weak because you have this curvature here that goes in here, so it's almost like it's tilting or curves inwards, and it makes it, the rear, to me at least, it feels a little bit top heavy when you look at it from this view, or from any view for that matter, even if you look at it from a side view. What I want to do is create more of a triangular design like this, or more like a planted design when we do the two-door version of this car. Some things I do like about this Mustang Mach-e is I do like the treatment of the rear lights. I think this is a cool evolution of what the Mustang lights has always been, the 3 bars. My personal favorite Mustang of all time, which is probably one of the best looking rear ends ever in the car design history, in my opinion, of course, is the 67 Fastback Mustang. And these lights, they remind me of those. They're smaller than the ones we have on the Mustang today, and they also follow this curvature that we have inside of this deck lid here. So it follows this shape. And I think it looks really cool, especially with this little bend in the middle that we have right here. It's a cool development of the current Mustangs, and I think I'm going to use these, or very similar to these, on the design that we're gonna make next. So let's have a look at this car now in a front view. Same thing here, we have some problems with the sharpness of the Mustang. It looks tame, it does have the squinty eyes and the angled headlights, but that's, to me, it's not enough for a Mustang. In this video, we're gonna focus on the rear end. We might do a video on the front end, depending on how well this video is received. But it's the same problem here, it's too soft. We don't have any defining sharp benders here, which I think is essential for this car, and you have them here. The only problem is that they made all the radiuses too smooth, so it almost looks like a watery surface that doesn't have any peaks. And the peaks are important specifically if you're dealing with a Mustang, and even more so if you're gonna put the Mustang name on an SUV, you might as well want to use as many defining lines from the Mustang Coupe and the Fastback as you can, and that means sharpening up these lines right here. But I'm not going to talk more about the Mach-e because I've made a couple of videos on it already. You can go check them out if you want to. So instead, let's talk about what really makes a Mustang a Mustang. As I said, it seems today with a lot of different car brands and models that you can basically take a name and slap it onto whatever body style you want, and then by definition that becomes that brand of a name, of nameplate. For example, this Mustang right here. But I think the Mustang, when you design it, it needs to have some key defining features, and the Mach-e is so far away from all of these features that we're used to seeing in a Mustang, which is a two-door front engine sports car, and this is a four-seater electric SUV. But again, I understand why they did it. It's for marketing purposes. It's for people to get excited about Ford's first ever electric SUV. So by putting the Mustang name onto this car, it will grab the attention of people, and people will be more excited about this rather than they would have just called it the Ford Mach-e, for example. But what I'm gonna do is take the rear end of this car and focus on the graphic elements of the Mach-e, and then transform this whole car into a two-door sports car, the fastback style that we're used to. It's going to be a lot of photoshopping in this video, which is always a lot of fun. And with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here, and let's start this whole transformation. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop, of course, and I'm just gonna start the transformation from scratch here so you can follow along as we turn this into a fastback Mustang. And I'm actually looking at the final result here, and I can't wait to show it to you. But as we go, I want to talk about what happened here when we transformed the Mach-e into this two-door coupe here. The biggest problem is always when you do transformations like this, is always to really think about the proportions of this car. So what is different from a four-seater electric SUV and turning that into a probably an electric, or maybe it has some engine in the front, probably not a V8 anymore. But I was thinking of making this electric as well, but the proportions are still going to be dramatically different. So tweaking those is the main time-consuming thing here, and then adding the graphic elements onto those new proportions is like the easy bit of the redesign here. So what I had problems with here is the rear end, because on the SUV, the Mach-e, it doesn't stick out as long as it should on a two-door coupe of the Mustang, like all the other Mustangs have done up until the Mach-e. I had some issues with that, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with the proportions of the car until I just copied the whole rear end, which you're gonna see in the end of this video, and just moved it further out. And all of a sudden, all of the lines starts to make sense. And I also had some, I had to reference the current Mustang to really have a look at the proportions of the current Mustang and try to implement those, although in a new style. And I also wanted to keep the hockey puck line that you have going down there on the door, because I think that is one of the typical Mustang lines that I love about I used to have a 2012 Mustang GT, and I loved it. I love the design of it. I think it looks more muscle car-y than the 2014 until today Mustang, because it's more boxy, and it also has this hockey stick line that goes down on the door there, which I love, and also a very distinct rear shoulder, which is important on a muscle car like this, because you have a big 5-liter V8 in the front. You have the power going to the rear axle, and that needs to be visible in the shell of the car, in the body of the car, in the anatomy of the car. So that means that you need to add these big fenders in the rear to show where the power is being planted and where the power is going to. I also really like the line that the current Mustangs have, the 2014 till today, the S550. The line that goes right from the taillights and cuts through the body of the car is just a subtle line, but it kind of suits the car and makes it feel like the top, it makes it feel lower because you have the line cutting almost in the middle of the car. So that's the one other line that I wanted to add. So this in combination, I took the S550 line, which is that line in the middle, and then combined it with the hockey stick line in the bottom from the previous generation Mustang body lines, and it turned out pretty cool. For the wheels, I went with the GT350R wheels. These wheels to me are really good looking wheels. I always prefer simple style when it comes to the wheels and subtle colors. I don't really prefer black, as I said before, because the black wheels, they hide the design of the wheels, but these graphite, almost gunmetal looking wheels, simple spokes, 7-spoke wheels, they just look right on this type of car, and they look right on the 350R, and it also looks right on this design that we're creating right here. So we're coming to an end of this redesign, and this has been a really fun one. It took a little bit longer than usual to make this because it was such a drastic design, but at the same time I feel like I learned a lot doing this, specifically regarding proportions and turning an SUV into a coupe. I don't think it's something I've ever done before. I've done the other way around, but not SUV to coupe. I'm not sure when the next Mustang is actually going to drop, but I really look forward to it. Specifically now, when they have the Mach-e, it's like they have to take some design elements from the Mach-e and implement it on the next generation Mustang. I hope they will make a 2-door Mustang moving forward. We have the problem with the Camaro. I'm not sure if they're making it. Maybe Chevy has updated the status of the next generation Camaro, but I know it was talks about not producing Camaros specifically as 2-door coupes at least anymore. So I hope these muscle cars, the Challenger, the Mustang, and the Camaro, I hope they still survive. I don't care if they turn it into electric, but I just love the styling of these cars when you have a long hood, even though you can now have a lot of trunk space in the front. But the long hood, the small sloping low roofline, and also the very distinct cut in the rear is just an overall classic, beautiful shape. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what type of cars you want to see me make on this channel in the comments below. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'm TheSketchMonkey. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.